Hello students, it's your favorite teacher talking, maybe your favorite teacher talking. Talking to you a little bit about the age of imperialism because I'd like to do an imperialism review with you. As you know, your test is on Friday and I know you're not looking forward to it, but there are some things that we can do that will make it easier. So I thought I'd walk you through a little bit of a PowerPoint and we can kind of talk a little bit of our review, and maybe hearing it for the third or fourth or fifth time, it might actually make a little more sense to you. So this slide talks about new imperialism. So this is new imperialism, right? Where it was the political and economic control of one country by the other. Now the old imperialism was more about gold, gospel, and glory, and about finding, conquering new lands to say you did, to go there and find pretty things like gold and those kinds of things. Whereas new imperialism became more about economics, about the sale of markets, or sale of goods to another market, the finding of resources that you could then take back to your country to manufacture and then sell new things to new markets. So in this example, you can see England takes
Mommy.
raw materials
Mommy,
into finished goods and sends them to India for
Mommy,
sale.
that was just a photo cover.
Oh, that was the photocopier?
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Sorry. And then, of course, India was the one that sent the raw material to England. Now, this would never work had England not forced India to stop making any goods themselves. Right? So, here are a couple of sample questions we could take a look at. Right? So, in the past, European nations have conquered other lands, made them into colonies, and controlled their economies. Which term refers to the situation described in the statement? Well, we know that. It's imperialism. Right? I have to admit, I don't even know what monotheism is. I'll have to look that up. And again, another definition for imperialism is throughout the 1800s, the increased need for both raw materials and new markets for manufactured goods led various European nations to pursue the policies of imperialism. Right? So here are the new causes for imperialism. We have seen some of these before. So a place for growing populations to settle. We used to call that outlet for excess population. My son is attempting to steal the microphone. A desire to spread Christianity. That's going to be a big one. Power and security of a global empire. The British used to argue that the sun never sets on their empire. So at any given time, the sun was shining on part of their empire because their empire kind of circumnavigated the globe. Right? A spirit of nationalism, thinking you're proud of your country because it owns so many things. A need for new markets. The economic reason, you have to sell things. A belief that Western ways are best. That was very Eurocentric, meaning Europe is better, right? Because they're whiter. Social Darwinism is when you take the ideas of Darwin that only the fittest survive and survival of the fittest and apply it to people. And so you would look around and say, well, obviously the whitest people are doing the best, so they must survival of the fittest. They must be the fittest, and so they are better, right? So wish to share Western civilization, which of course was so amazing. And then the fact that they could, because they had new weapons and they had Navy ships and things like that. There's a lot of reasons why new imperialism began. So hopefully those you kind of remember. So on your multiple choice exam, you will see some questions on the reasons behind imperialism, and you should be able to pick them out. So for example, for Britain, when they looked at India, they're looking economically. They're looking to spread their civilization and potentially even spread their religion. So causes of new imperialism is kind of the same stuff, right? Economic and need for some more stuff to produce and make other stuff. Need for new markets to sell your stuff to. A place for a growing population to settle. In the case of the British, they used Australia as a jail, right? A place to invest profits. They had money. Let's go use it somewhere and make maybe some new companies and elsewhere. Right, there were military reasons, right? You needed bases, you needed strategic. So for example, England took over Egypt so that they had a nice, quick way to get to number one, India. Right, in the spirit of nationalism, you did it because you could, because your country was so awesome. Society, the desire to spread Christianity, and the belief that Western ways were best, and if they could just help all of these other colored folk, they could help them so much. And then science and invention, because they could, because they had new weapons, because they had new medicines.
Mommy, race car.
And that is what kind of race car is that, Silas?
Francisco.
That is Francisco. If those of you who have not watched Cars 2, this is Francisco. There you go, Silas.
Mommy.
You're welcome. This is the white man's burden. Remember, we talked about the white man's burden. The white man's burden, of course, was in large part trying to colonize and civilize and westernize these backwards brown people and black people. But the problem is, it's breaking the backs of some of these white people. It's really hard work. So here he is dragging. It's hard to see his face. He's got giant lips. So this is clearly a very racist cartoon. All right, he's dragging this guy, and they're going to try and put him in like potentially what we would call a residential school. But unfortunately, there's some sort of dead dude over here. So let's look at this question. The 19th century term white man's burden reflected in this cartoon shows the idea that, and we're probably looking at, well, of course we know it's in blue, Europeans had a responsibility to improve the lives of colonial peoples, right? And I mean, you guys read Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell, and he talked about how he had to shoot that elephant not because he wanted to, because he thought he had to. And that was imperialism. He got sucked into imperialism just as everybody else did too. Right? Talking about why Egypt was so important. That was the strategic, right? The Suez Canal. So here's Egypt right here. And so if you control the Suez Canal, you get a nice short route to India. Right?
Mommy.
So then this is talking about, yes, Silas?
There's a number on here on the green.
Is there a number on the green?
He's number 1.
Oh, wow. Francesco is number 1 in Cars 2. So this is imperialism. So obviously these are the areas that we kind of looked at. We mainly looked at Africa and India in relation to Europe, and both of those, of course, are in relation to England and Britain. We talked about how China had that open door policy because nobody could actually effectively take control of China, and trust me, lots of people wanted to with so many resources there. But China had a very organized government and a strong military. And Japan was more of an imperial power. It was never a colony. It tried to take over other colonies. So, I think this is probably where we'll stop, because a lot of these things you didn't have to worry about, except for maybe a couple down here. Okay, maybe if you, oh, hang on, it's getting bigger. It's getting bigger. So the Berlin Conference, that's where they all got together and carved up Africa without inviting a single African, right? So that's where they decided to divide up Africa. The Sepoy Mutiny was when the Sepoys, the hired Indian soldiers for Britain, for the British East India Company, discovered that the bullets they were using were greased with some sort of animal fat, and whether it was cow fat or pork fat, that was going to prove problematic for one half of the Sepoys, no matter what animal it was. The British East India Company was an example of commercial colonialism. They were given control of India. They were a company, right? Hudson's Bay Company was given control of Canada. They were a company, right? The scramble for Africa, everybody was in a hurry to get Africa. And of course the Opium War was when Britain tried selling opium to China in a way to drug the Chinese into trading what they wanted. So let's kind of stop there. You might have to, I tend to talk kind of fast, so you might have to watch this one time or 2 times, but oh my goodness, hopefully not 3. I think it would be really boring. So hopefully this will help kind of get you started, and then we'll kind of look at a few more other things.
I have to go to Mel. I watch Thomas on Mel's computer.
Okay. And I will see you later.